Hey guys, welcome back. In this video I'm going to walk you through the making of a track that I recently uploaded. This is for all of you guitar players that are also interested in electronic music. I'm going to share with you my approach on how I combine electric guitar to electronic music, so samples, beats and all that good stuff. So yeah, let's get started. Right, so here's the Ableton session. As you can see, let me grab my headphones, and so the beat kind of sounds like this. So it's kind of a simple beat, mainly samples with a few tweaks, but very simple stuff. And then you have that guitar that kind of carries the whole thing, I guess. So yeah, it's kind of a minimal vibe, a chill vibe, which I kind of like. So let me show you how I approach this kind of stuff. So as you can see, we have a very, very minimal track amount. It's literally like 7 tracks. Plus 2 other, backing guitar tracks. So the total is like 11 tracks. So let's start with the drums. So this is the kick drum, and it's basically bouncing between 2 kick samples. By the way, the majority of the samples from this project are taken from Splice pack, obviously. In particular is this one, if you want to check it out. It's kind of one of the new packs. They recently released this, and it's very, very, very cool. So if you want to get like that similar vibe, you can check out check it out on Splice if you use Splice. So anyway, we have just 2 very simple kick samples and nothing else. Didn't even mix it. You're literally just hearing the project as it is. Then we have very simple snare loop. Again, no processing, kind of sounds kind of good right off the bat, so I didn't really do anything. Here we have some Foley and some ambient stuff. Again, just a loop, but you see a gate here. There's a very nice trick that I got from Andrew Huang. I don't know if you're familiar with that channel. If you're into electronic music at all, I definitely recommend you check out his channel. So yeah, this gate is basically doing inverse sidechain compressor, if that makes any sense. So basically I'm triggering the gate with the kick drum here. So this gate is actually listening. As you can see, the sidechain is on here. This gate is actually listening to the kick drum, this kick drum track that I showed you earlier. That means that basically it's gonna open up every time the kick plays. So it's kind of like the opposite of sidechain compression, really. So every time the kick plays, this Foley track is going to play as well. And then you can kind of play around with the release and determine how much you want that track to play. As you can see, with a shorter release time, it's going to cut immediately. Or you can use a longer one. And kind of just give a little bit of groove to this otherwise very static Foley track. So every time you have a very static, it can be a pad or it can be anything really which doesn't have dynamic, you can add dynamic back into it with a trick like this. So sidechaining to some kind of percussion track, You can do it with a snare, with a kick drum, or with like percussions, anything really. So the point is that you're always trying to look for dynamics. At least that's what I like to do, and kind of avoid static tracks unless you really need that. But you know, especially in this case, if you keep things more dynamic, I think it really benefits the arrangement. Here again, we have another Foley track with the same treatment. So you see, it makes it sound kind of weird and less predictable in some way, instead of just a linear. And it was already an interesting sample. It already had some movement, but yeah, I felt like it could benefit for a little bit more movement. Here we have another snare. Very interesting sample. I mean, nothing to say here, just try to search for the good sounding samples. That's gonna be like 80% of the production. If you can start with interesting sounding raw material, you're gonna be halfway there. I mean, more than half. Again, 80% pretty much. So let's actually just listen to these drum tracks. Super simple beat, but again, if you spend some time trying to look for interesting samples, you can create something interesting even with a very minimal amount of tracks, and not much processing, not much tweaking. I didn't really tweak that much. Here, basically, the intent was just to find good samples that work together. That's gonna be a matter of practice and taste. So yeah, it's gonna basically come automatic for you over time. You're gonna find what samples work best with others, and what makes samples sound good and all that stuff. So that's like pretty much the whole track. And then we have this vocal sample here, which I tweaked a little bit. So if I bypass everything, so basically I made it darker sounding, and also I shifted formants here with the altar boy. To make it sound like more weird, basically. De-esser and tons of reverb. A very interesting plugin that's basically, tape saturation, and it basically makes everything super dark. So like, it's basically cutting everything in the high frequency department. So if I bypass it, so it's really reducing the high frequency content. You can make it even darker. It's basically like a high pass filter. Very interesting plugin. And then yeah, just some filtering to make it fit into the mix. But that's it really. Then we have a bass, which again is just a sample from that same sample pack. I mean, it sounds cool. So I didn't really do anything. It's kind of like an upright bass. Really fits the mood here. But yeah, super minimal. The takeaway here is that you should just focus on how each track work together, and just focus on picking the best samples to begin with. Even if you don't make electronic music, it's kind of the same thing. Try to start with great source material, great virtual instruments if you use those, or great tracking if you're tracking real instruments. Make sure everything sounds good from the beginning. The less processing you need to do in post, the better. And also, don't be afraid of using less tracks. I think using less is better, so less is more. I really do think that, and especially lately I've been really into like super minimal arrangements and just trying to see how far I can go as far as having less tracks. So try to find like the least amount of tracks you need to make the idea stand, and without like too much layering, without putting too much stuff into the project. You'll be surprised on how much you can do with just 4 tracks. It's also very nice arranging exercise. You know, if you can develop an idea with less tracks, you're gonna focus on what's actually important for that idea, for that song. That's really what matters at the end. So anyway, in the second part, we just have that same reversed snare sample. So it's the same sample, just reversed, and we have this one, which is like an impact, and I have no idea how I made this. It's probably coming from some drum sample, maybe even this one, the snare, resampled, maybe pitched down an octave, the stuff that I usually do. I have another video about this, which you can check out, and it's about sound design and how you can create interesting sounds just by manipulating audio, so definitely check that out if you're interested. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole track, and again, I basically tried to develop that idea, that, you know, selective picking guitar idea with the least amount of tracks possible, so that, you know, you retain that minimal vibe, which I really like. And yeah, you know, that way you really leave space for the main element, in this case the guitar, you know, this selective picking riff. So in some way, I think when you have less tracks, it sounds a lot bigger because everything has space to breathe, so you can really hear every element of the mix. So most of the time it's gonna just sound better if you have less stuff. Obviously, there are some contexts in which you need like 100 tracks to make the idea sound right, but not all the time. So definitely experiment with how far you can go and basically make every track sound at its best by focusing on what's really important in the arrangement. Alright guys, so I guess that's it for today's video. Let me know if you liked it. As always, feel free to leave any questions down below. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and yeah, see you in the next video.